Ivy League Ready Tutoring. If it was not for this program, I would have never passed any of my tests. Because I went to school for education, but once I graduated and I started taking these tests, I didn't understand the framework of these tests. And I tried to study, I tried to get my university to help me. They wouldn't help me. And I kept, feel like I don't know how in the world I'm going to pass these tests. Like, I don't understand the framework of it. So I kept seeing, this is like 2 years ago, I kept seeing Alicia's name over and over and over and over on a lot of the Facebook pages that we all follow, and I'm like, I need to hire her as my tutor to help me pass these tests because I feel like she can help me. And then once I started working with her, then the magic started happening. Then I really started to understand the framework of all these tests, as far as like the PPR, the SCR, the EC26. She has really, really helped me. And one advice I would give everybody, I think she said this a minute ago, definitely take a practice test. I know it is boring. Trust me. I think the SCR was the worst for me. Like, sitting down and taking the SCR practice test was brutal because I had to sit down for the whole 4 to 5 hours, and yeah, that was miserable for me. But I had to take that practice test because I had to see where I was. And once I was able to finish that, then I was able to see, oh, wait, this competency I didn't really do so well on. I need to spend a little bit more time on. This competency I did well on, but let me look to see what questions that I got wrong. So when I go and take the actual test, I know how to answer them. So definitely take a practice test before you take the actual test or even schedule it. Make sure you have that data because I made that mistake last February with the SCR because the last school I worked at was very toxic. I'm not going to get into all that, but my admin was like pressuring me nonstop to get certified so they could rehire me. Long story short, my admin was narcissist, which that's a whole nother story. We're all teachers here. We all know how admin could be. But anyway, once I left that situation, I was like, nah, I'm not gonna have nobody pressure me. I'm gonna make sure that I'm fully prepared to take these tests. Then once I started doing that, I started seeing better results. And then once I took that practice test, then I got better results. And I'm like, okay, now I'm fully ready to go take it. And I did it for all three of the tests, and I took all three tests to some, and I passed all three of them. So now I'm officially EC26 certified. I'm so excited. It's like a huge release off my shoulders. Now I'm working on my ESO and my SPED certifications so I can have more, you know, so I'm really, really excited. Also, here's another advice I'm giving everybody. Don't pressure yourself with this test. Study for like 30, 40 minutes a day and take some days off. It's okay to take a day or two off. I did that a lot this summer. Like, I would study on Monday, Tuesday, and then Wednesday I would take a whole day off, just binge watching TV and hanging out with my friends. And then maybe on Thursday and Friday, I will go back to studying. So definitely just take care of yourself. I have learned that with these tests. You guys will eventually pass, but you have to take care of yourself before you stress yourself out over these exams.
That was some wonderful advice. Thank you so much, Shateeck. So, if you learn nothing from what he just said, make sure you take a practice exam. This is from somebody who passed recently over the summer, right? So, we're talking about
Yes.
EC6, STR, PPR, and also make sure you do an alternate study schedule, especially if you know like you struggle with like anxiety and it's just because teaching is a lot, right? And so with also trying to take tests, you want to make sure you do about 30, 45 minutes every other day. You might have more time over the weekend, and that's good because then you could do an hour and 30 minutes, but definitely make sure you take a practice exam for sure. All right. Shateeck, thank you so much for coming on and dropping those gems and helping us. Really appreciate that. Before you go, does anybody have a question that you would like to ask?
Also, while you guys are answering that, here's another advice I'm gonna give you because I use certified teacher to help me. In my opinion, like 240 wasn't working out for me because I feel like 240 gives way too much information that's not necessary. Um, in my opinion, if you do decide to do certified teacher, that's your choice. If you do certified teacher, they scale you. So let's say, for example, if you make like a 239 or a 240 or 241, I personally would recommend spending a little bit more time on the competencies that you didn't do well in, because being on the borderline is not so good, because you might pass but you might not pass, you know what I mean? So that's another advice I would give everybody. Just make sure that you at least over a 245. That's just
That is
my
so
advice.
good. No, I
Yes.
love that. Yeah, because a lot of times we think, oh, we're at a 240, we're gonna automatically pass, but being on the cuffs, it could go 239, it could go 238 on the actual test. So you are 100% correct. Definitely make sure you are overly over that 240, like 245, 250. That way you
Yes.
pretty much ensure for sure. Yeah.
Yes, definitely, because I made that mistake. Actually, no, I think I took a practice PPR test and I got literally a 240. And then I remember you said, like, no, spend a little bit more time with it. And then I took it again and I made a 248. And then that's when I scheduled it. And the funny thing is, everybody, like, I literally made a 248 on the test, on the PPR test. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm glad that I spent more time of it.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us. I appreciate it. And I will see you at 9.
All right. See you later.
All right. Bye. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
All right. So you also want to make sure that, constant checks for understanding. So the way that it's going to work for the rest of our time here, because I know you guys came to learn how to break down this test. So that's what we're going to focus on. So direct instruction, I'll be telling you, what keywords to focus on, what to really look for in a question. You want to look for, okay, if they give us a grade level, let me go ahead and highlight the grade level. You do have access to the highlighting feature on the exam. The reason why you want to highlight the grade level is the younger the student is, the more you want to pick an answer choice where students are actually doing something, where it is concrete, it's active, right? The older the student is, the more you want to appeal to their um, higher level thinking, right? We want them to think at a high level. We want them to be inferencing and evaluating and hypothesizing, things of that nature, right? So that's what you want to look for. Now, if you have a question and they're referring to their proficiency level, you want to highlight beginning, intermediate, advanced high. All of that's going to be important. All right. So, some strategies that you want to make sure that you look for. You definitely want to. Oh, I just saw a question in the chat. I'm sorry. Once you take the practice exam, can you do it again? Yes, you can do it again. And then they also have a study plan that you'll get with it as well. So that'll be helpful. And I would say definitely keep trying before you give people $120 and you don't have any data. I'm a teacher at heart. So if the data is not conducive to a passing score, then I'm not just gonna go take the test and like wish upon a star that all of a sudden I pass. Because we all know that's not how that works, unfortunately. You want to read the questions in their entirety, right? We've all heard of good words, bad words. I teach buzzwords. It has over 500 downloads on Teacher Pay Teacher. But at the end of the day, none of those keywords mean anything if you don't read the questions in their entirety, right? And then a big thing is you want to make sure that you do not change your answers. Definitely stick with your first mind. All right. Another thing that people typically overlook, you want to break down the competencies, right? So we're going to look at the study guide. We went over it last week. So we're going to be going over some different questions. We're really going to be looking at competency 7 tonight. So we're going to break down that competency tonight specifically. Create a realistic, measurable study plan. That's what Shateeck was telling you. So if you know that you coach volleyball and you coach football, then and you know you coach volleyball and football on Mondays and Wednesdays, then that might be a day that you don't want to study because you're super tired. So pick days where, hey, you're gonna have more time, you're gonna be able to retain information, right? Because once you find that you're not retaining, it does you no good to continue to study. Pull out vocabulary and study them. Look for trends within the competencies and answer choices. So trends are, think, pair, share. Students join graphic organizers. Students are in heterogeneous groups, meaning they are in mixed ability groups, high, low. Um, Answer choices where they are talking to each other. Answer choices where it is a lot of student input is typically correct, right? Answer choices that tend to be incorrect: videos, flashcards, worksheets. Never correct. Anything that's punitive, taken away before and after recess, or um, pulling students out during recess or before and after school is incorrect. Pull out important information. We hinted on that before. Grade level. You also want to pull out the proficiency level and do not change answers. Definitely go with your first mind, okay? Even if your test is already scheduled, that's even more reason to take a practice exam, right? Because from my understanding, you have about 48 hours if you need to reschedule your date if you need to. But if you wait until the day before, you won't be able to do it. So if your test is on Wednesday, you need to make sure I so that there won't be any misunderstanding. If your test is on Wednesday, you need to be taking a practice test by Saturday. And depending on your results, you need to be canceling by Sunday if it's not what it needs to be, right? So we're not just giving money away. All right. So this test is 60% mindset and 40% content. A lot of my clients, a lot of what I do is building confidence. Am I knowledgeable on the PPR? Absolutely. Have I helped hundreds of people pass? Sure. But confidence, and making sure that people feel equipped to go in and take their exam and not change answers and not feel anxiety. Sometimes you need a pep talk. Sometimes you just need somebody to believe in you, and sometimes you just need to vent. So I feel like I'm all of that to the people that I work with, right? And that's okay. I'm the type of person I can listen to somebody vent and it doesn't change my energy. That's why I feel like I was born to do this because I can listen to you, encourage you, and we're good to go. You want to tell yourself, I can do this. I am studying and persisting with purpose for a reason. I only fail when I give up, and I absolutely can pass this test because you absolutely can, right? So let's see here. Recommended resources. What have you been using so far to pass your exam? And I'm going to change it so only I can see your responses. What have you been using to study so far? Put your answer in the chat. Really nice work. Okay, so I see a little bit of certified teacher, learning liaison, 240. So if you have a way to get a practice test, I know certified teacher, you can take a practice exam, and then they have a study tracker, and that helps you as well. 240 also has a practice exam, so definitely take a practice exam if you know that you'll be taking your test soon. The two times you want to take a practice exam is when you first start studying, right? And when you know you're about 2 weeks away from taking your exam, you need to take a practice exam. So, recommended resources that I found have been helpful was the PPR study guide that's free under TEA, the REA book, So I see some of you say you've been using that. People, I don't know if there's anyone in here who has ever taken my PPR boot camp, but if you have, the materials in the Google Classroom, I found to be very helpful. Online resources like Certified Teacher. And then for those of you who are like, hey, all I've been using is like Quizlet, I've been using, a program that doesn't give me a practice exam, that's fine. Because Pearson, there's a Pearson test for $10. Now, it doesn't give you a numerical score, but that is fine. The reason why that's fine is if you see mostly green, then I would say, hey, you're in the clear. You're 240, right? If you see yellow in domains like 1 and 3, that's worth over half of the exam, then I would say, hey, you still have some studying to do. If you see a lot of yellow and red, you're not ready to take your exam. I know that's a harsh truth because it's like, oh my God, my principal is pressuring me. Okay, and if they pressure you and you take your exam and you know you're not ready, you still will not have passed the exam, and then you're out of $120. You see what I'm saying? So what, like what's the sense in that, right? So it's like either way, you're still $120 richer, and then when you take your exam, you would have passed it, right? So definitely make sure it makes sense. All right, thank you for sharing. So as we look at our study guide here, let me pull it up. I'm gonna push stop share so you won't see my screen real quick. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna show you this study guide that I'm referring to, and I'll just ask if you've ever used this study guide before, and then we'll go from there. All right, can you go ahead and answer in the chat? Have you ever used this particular study guide before? Put your answer in the chat. Yes, no. All right, we got yes, 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 yes. Okay, gotcha. So I would say it's definitely helpful. You get 40 questions, right? 40 questions you don't have to pay for. So I think it is very helpful. And the competencies are there. So I always say, let me show you where it is. And I put the link in as well. So overview of the exam framework is where you'll actually get to see all of the competencies here. And the competency we're focusing on tonight is going to be competency 7, which is in domain 3. Domain 3 is about 34% of the exam. So it's a big chunk, right? So most of my clients, they say they struggle in domain 1 and domain 3. Most people that come to me needing help, that's the competencies they struggle the most in. So with competency 7, let me go ahead and pull up a slide here. All right, so you will see the entire slide here with the competencies. Okay, so I want you to read the competency to yourself, and any words that stand out to you, go ahead and put them in the chat. This is a common practice that I do with my clients who are in our PPR bootcamp and our mentorship program. We always make sure we break down the competency because I guarantee the vocabulary that you see in the competency, you will also see that same vocabulary in the questions. It gives you, when you break down the competency, It gives you the framework and the mindset of the exam to not pick answer choices that you would pick, but answer choices that make sense for the test, right? So we have to pass this test. So I'm going to have you read the competency and any keywords that stand out, go ahead and put them in the chat. So I see words like communicating, engages. I see important words like fosters active inquiry, high order thinking, problem solving, giving appropriate wait time. A lot of times we want to jump and save our students, but there is beauty in the struggle. Sometimes they need to struggle in order to actually understand the content, right? And they sometimes they just need processing time. That's a giving students wait time is a very popular answer, especially for emerging bilingual students. Effective communication, clear and accurate, nonverbal skills, absolutely. Y'all are picking some good ones. Really nice work. So this competency in a nutshell is all about effective communication. Verbal and nonverbal communication. If you say you want to engage with the students, but your back is to them and you're not making eye contact, that's nonverbal. Verbal, with young kids, you want to be to the point and you want to make sure that you give them directions that are easy to follow, that are sequential. Students are not going to follow directions that are all over the place, right? Questioning, we want to think about Bloom's taxonomy, having students think on a high level and helping them to become thoughtful questioners. For communication to occur, it's important for us to check for understanding with students to make sure that they understand the message. Vocabulary should be direct and precise. The message should be direct and precise. Vocabulary should be appropriate to the age of the students. Teacher communication has to be organized. Students will not follow directions well if teachers are always adding things that they have forgotten. Remember that the effective teacher already has things planned and written as to not forget anything when planning an activity. Even when the message is adequate and clear, nonverbals can confuse the message. If you're saying, hey, students, I really want you to focus, but you're turned away to the students, or you're just reading straight from the PowerPoint and you're not making eye contact, that could confuse students as well. So keep that in mind. Questioning. We want students to be answering open-ended responses because it's going to cause them to think on a higher level, right? If you want a closed answer, ask a closed question. What's a closed question? Do you like the movie? They're going to say yes or no. They're not going to elaborate. Versus, what did you like about the movie? What appealed to you, right? Would you watch the movie again? Yes or no? And if make sure that you go into detail and explain why, right? We want students to analyze and evaluate. For good communication to occur, it's important that teachers ask relevant and meaningful questions, use effective communication skills that motivate students to learn. By modeling a good way of communicating, the teacher will promote good communication in the student. So good communication will also allow for better teamwork, achieving all the goals and objectives in a better way. All right, our first question. A high school science teacher shows students a clip from the film Apollo 13. So remember, a lot of times when we're showing clips, they're about a minute or less, right? You shouldn't be showing a whole video or anything like that. So keep that in mind. A high school science teacher shows students a clip from the film Apollo 13, showing the cinematic astronauts creating a new carbon monoxide filter out of materials available in their spacecraft. She writes the words collaboration, creativity, innovation, and resourcefulness on the board. She has students brainstorm in groups about personal experiences they've had in finding solutions to challenging problems. This activity focuses on which of the following elements of effective, responsive instruction. We have A, promoting high order thinking by guiding students towards exploring and inquiry. So when we see inquiry is all about putting the learning back on the students. The students are asking questions, the students are doing research, right? So did the teacher give students an activity where they would do the majority of the thinking? Absolutely. She had students brainstorm. She had the students find solutions to challenging problems. So she's definitely promoting high order thinking. So let me get you to stay away from any distractors. B, using films to promote students' understanding of complex topics. So she used a clip. A clip is not the same as an entire, video. So B is out. The distractor here is C, though, connecting class content to real world experience. A lot of us might have said, oh, okay, they're connecting real world experience. One thing I'm going to let you know, C is typically not the correct answer. I don't know why, but I do not see a lot of answers where it's like, oh, connecting to real world. That's typically not correct. Here it's all because we want students to think on a high level. They're high school. We want to promote high order thinking. That's what this competency is about. So A is going to make the most sense here. You don't want to pick the good answer. You want to pick the best answer. Stimulating students' prior knowledge. She didn't ask them about prior knowledge. She asked them about what? Personal experiences. So it'll be important to make sure you pay attention to those keywords because it can make or break a question. So it's going to be A as an apple. By scaffolding class discussion on terms such as collaboration and innovation in the context of the film clip, the teacher is promoting students' ability to think deeply about these concepts. All right, next question. When you have your answer, you can go ahead and put your answer in the chat, but I'll read the question and then you can put your answer in the chat when you're ready. The teacher makes large research cards of several unusual animals that she knows have not been chosen by the students. She posts these on the display area where the students will eventually post their cards. This teaching strategy primarily addresses which of the following principles of effective responsive instruction. When you're ready, put your answer in the chat. Make sure to go with your first mind, so just practice that. Stick with your first mind and don't change your answers. All right. So if you chose B, you were absolutely correct, right? So the teacher intentionally chose these large research cards that none of the other students chose because she was trying to provide examples. The best way to communicate with students is to provide examples. We do it all the time in our classrooms. We make sure we have an exemplar present. We make sure that we're good to go. So it is going to be B as in boy. Any questions about that question? All right, which of the following explanations most effectively identifies the prime benefit students derive from cooperative learning activities? So remember, with cooperative learning activities, students are working in groups, they're working together, they're asking each other questions, they're really owning their learning. Teachers are more of the facilitators, but we have students who are assuming most of the responsibility. You want to pick a student-centered response, a student-centered response. When you're ready, put your answer in the chat. So if you chose B, you were absolutely correct. Where students assume responsibility for the learning process, that means the students are talking, they're working together, and they work together under reduced teacher directiveness, right? So that means that the teacher is not talking over everybody and the students are just taking notes and the teacher's just a lecturer. It's like, no, they are really working together, owning their own learning. So it's going to be B as in boy. We wanted to stay away from C because it's not about the teachers being facilitators. That's not the point. The point is the students are working together and they're assuming responsibility for the learning process, thus learning more, right? So we always want to pick student-centered responses. So B is correct. Cooperative learning does not eliminate the teacher from the learning process, but it does provide opportunities for increased learner responsibility for constructing knowledge. All right. Question 4. So I did want to go over vocabulary here. So if you look in answer choice C, it says the teacher starts using a jigsaw approach. When you think about a jigsaw approach, think about a puzzle, right? They're using, and basically one group is teaching one part of the lesson, another group is teaching another part of the lesson, and they're working together so that at the end, they've taught, the entire class have taught each other, right? So you have to ask yourself, if students are struggling and they're rarely able to answer any questions and they're struggling, would that be the best approach? Or do we need to give students an opportunity to think and then share out with a partner and then share out whole group? What do you think? So definitely read the question, look at what has been highlighted, and when you're ready, put your answer in the chat. So if students are struggling, it's not the best idea for them to teach the class, right? Because they're struggling with the concept. They're rarely able to answer the question. So it might be that the students have lost interest and they're zoning out. We do it all the time. If somebody sits and talks at you for 90 minutes, you're probably going to zone out. So it is going to be D as in dog. The teacher divides the lecture into mini lessons of no more than 10 minutes each and does a think, pair, share at the end of each mini lesson. So it is going to be D as in dog. So the think, pair, share will actively involve students in the shorter lesson segments and is very likely to promote comprehension. All right, so this question assesses Bloom's taxonomy. Mr. Drake, so if you filled out that form, I will be sending you a newsletter and it'll have the video. So it'll have a resource of the week as well. So you'll be able to look at that video on Bloom's taxonomy, okay? So Mr. Drake, a first grade teacher, is starting a reading unit on animals. Students read at different levels. Additionally, the class includes several beginning level ELOs. Mr. Drake leads the class in a whole class discussion about pets. Some of the students have pets, others talk about how they would like to have pets, but their parents keep saying pets are too much trouble. Mr. Drake then asks, what kinds of things might make pets seem like too much trouble? The exercise presents what level of questioning? So I'm going to delete two of these just off of the bare knowledge that synthesis is not a level of the new Bloom's taxonomy, so it's not a level. And then comprehension is at the low level. And for this competency, we're only focusing on high level, right? So when we evaluate, are we asking the students to prove their point of view or see something from somebody else's point of view? If we are analyzing is comparing and contrasting. So ask yourself, are they comparing anything? Are they showing the similarities and differences? Or are they talking about their point of view? Or they're evaluating their point of view? When you're ready, put your answer in the chat. All right, let's see what we have here. A, okay, I'm seeing a lot of A's. Really nice work. So A is correct. B, it is evaluation because Mr. Drake then says, okay, for those of you who are saying that pets are too much trouble, what makes a pet too much trouble? They then have to defend their point of view. If somebody's like, oh, pets are like great, they then have to then say, okay, what might make them seem like a lot of trouble? So they have to see things from somebody else's point of view. So it is going to be evaluation. Really nice work. So the question invites students to consider several sides of an issue and make judgment. All right, so let's see here. Give me 1 second. I do want us to look